I encourage everyone to take a moment and breathe and take a tea cheers with Ajiri tea. Ajiri tea recognizes the beauty in shared stories and shared opportunities. Ajiri sources award-winning tea from Kenya, employs women in the region to handcraft the labels, and sends 100% of the profits back to the region to support orphan education. Save 10% on your order of Kenyan teas and coffee with the code BeautifullyHuman at ajiritea.com. AJIRIT.com. Tea mugs up. Hello and welcome to the Beautifully Human podcast. I'm Nick Sheesby. In this podcast, I speak with beautiful humans from all around the world, sharing with you their incredible stories, revealing the power in every human story, to spread love and humanity to a world that is in desperate need of it, to show that we can all connect in beautiful ways, no matter where we come from or what we look like. What you will find out is that we are all beautifully human. Let's all be beautifully human. Hello again and welcome to the Beautifully Human podcast. Today I am hanging out with my good friend Jeremy Lister, and we have an amazing conversation, and we come up with very, very similar life stories. I love him to death. It might have been trouble if we had hung out before we met each other these days, but this is a truly unbelievable conversation. Jeremy is such a wonderful human. I truly hope you enjoy the conversation. If you enjoy this podcast, follow on Instagram and on Spotify. Rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. It helps us get these conversations out to more people. And as always, enjoy this conversation. All right, brother. So I'd love to start these off with an broad, overarching question and tell me the story of your life.
Yes. Well, in 1979, I was born into a lovely family, then a family of four, son of a preacher, and this could be a very long answer.
That's all right.
I'll try to condense it. And then
All good.
We can come back and fill in the gaps. Ended up being the middle child. I've got a younger brother and an older brother. Born in South Carolina, grew up in Mississippi. Had a pretty good childhood for the most part. Really loving folks. My dad's a preacher, so it was very conservative, very religious, and you know, like I was in the church doors every time it was open. I wasn't allowed to watch and listen to certain things, and so that made me the middle child, like super rebellious, the black sheep. And I was a good kid for the most part. I was also diagnosed with ADHD at a young age. I was super hyperactive, just like bouncing off the walls. We lived out in the country, and there's videos of me just like a maniac, just running up everywhere. Yeah. Which is funny now because now I'm a runner, and I just kind of forgot that for so long. But some high points, I guess, in like junior high, early junior high, grade school. I think I was in 6th or 7th grade. I was attacked by some people. I was waiting for my parents to pick me up from a shopping mall, and these older kids that had gone to school with me, and some of them are in high school and some of them are not, had me come over to their car, and then they had bats and clubs, and this guy like broke a bat over my head and it nearly killed me, like, because it cracked my skull, and I had to go to the ER and everything after that. But
holy shit!
I was fine, and thank goodness I'm okay. Today I think so. At least. Maybe that explains a lot. But I didn't know it until now that I think that was one of the causes for a lot of like social anxiety and things like that I had. Then growing up was really big fan of the arts, and I grew up in an extremely musical family. In my immediate family, and like my grandfather sang with Elvis and things like that, and so I was just always around singers and instruments and music. Learned how to sing harmony sitting next to my mom in church. And so in school, I was really comfortable around like the art kids. If they were in the band or the choir, I was comfortable. But otherwise, I had a lot of anxiety. Still can get that way sometimes, but fortunately, like I've through a lot of work and things like that, I like people. I'm also an extrovert, so it's fun. But I try to hang out with my peeps.
Yeah.
And then through high school, really gravitated towards music, and got a little scholarship to a small community school in Mississippi, and was going to go there for a couple of years and then go to either Mississippi College where my folks had gone, or to Ole Miss, but I dropped out and joined a band, and then the rest is history. I joined a band called Geronimo Rex in Clinton, Mississippi, which is the name of a Barry Hannah book. Geronimo Rex, cool book. I think I never finished that book, but from what I read, it was a really fun author. We did sort of what we did, and we actually had a huge following, especially for Mississippi. We would sell out 1,000-seater rooms. Like, it was pretty nuts, but like it was just in like a couple cities. Like we were a big fish in a small town sort of thing. And then and after a couple of years of that, I was like, we need to go somewhere. I need to go somewhere. Like, I want to do music professionally, and so I was gonna go to New York. My girlfriend at the time, her brother lived in Nashville, and we'd done some recording like in Franklin or Brentwood, Tennessee, and I was like, let's just move to Nashville for like a few months, and then like I'll meet some industry people, and then we'll move to New York after that. And then so we moved to Nashville, and then a lot of things happened really quickly, and then within like just a few weeks, I was like, well, I think this is where I need to be for a while. I didn't have any aspirations to do country music, so I thought that's kind of what Nashville was until I moved here and found out that there's a lot more here than that. But yeah, long story short, ended up kind of having a few labels that had interest in signing me, and then ended up signing with Warner Brothers in Los Angeles in 2005, I think. And that was an amazing and frustrating and in retrospect a really wonderful thing, but it was very tough for me at the time too. It was like immediately it was like, oh my god, I've done it, I've made it, you know. And then like a lot with record deals, you know, you find that that's just like, it can trap you in some ways, but I learned so much, and I wrote hundreds of songs, and I also signed a little publishing deal with Warner Chappell, and I was out in LA a lot at the time where I was signed, and then eventually that did not work out after 5 years, and then a friend of mine I went to high school with and sang with in the choir invited me to sing or try out for a reality TV show called The Sing Off, which is an a cappella based reality show that was on right before The Voice for a number of years. And at first I was like, that's the silliest thing in the world. I'm not going to be an a cappella reality show. I thought, I had no idea if we would make the show or anything, but he asked me 2 times. The first time I said no, and the second time I was like, sure, whatever. And so we tried out for that, and they were like, you guys sound amazing, like better than anyone we've heard in a long time, but like you're like stiff, you don't have the jazz fingers, and you know, you're not doing the thing. And so we went out and got totally tanked. I came back in with a bottle of Fireball in my back pocket, and I poured all the judges, the casting judges, Fireball shots, and they were like, who? are these guys? And they loved us. Like we just kind of goofed off, and we had like one of the guys took off his shirt, and like we had like we like did like a worked up like a flow ride medley, like the stupidest things in the world.
Awesome.
But and so then we ended up hopping on the show, and my older brother Richie did the show with me, and on the flight to LA, we were just like, what the hell are we doing? This is bizarre. But we just had a great time, and we didn't take it very seriously. We just kind of stayed drunk and had a really good time. And we kept winning like every episode, and then we almost won the show. It came down to the last two, and we came in second place, and so that launched a whole new career where I was like, I guess I'm an a cappella singer now, and that's been a little over 10 years now, which is crazy, and we still are active. You were a part of our Kickstarter fundraiser, and we're working on a children's album now, which is really fun, and not touring as much. Obviously, last year no touring with COVID, but we're gonna go out and do a holiday run this year, which will be nice to get back out and do some shows. Yeah. And back in the end of 2018, I signed a publishing deal with Big Yellow Dog here in town, and a lot of what I do is I write music for other people. I write music for myself. I just finished up a holiday jazz album with like a big band sort of thing, like a Harry Connick vibe, and then
Sweet.
And then I do a lot of things for film and TV and ads, and I just this year I've got a song in a T-Mobile commercial right now, and then a little thing with Dignity Health Care is about to come out in a couple of months too, and it's just weird but kind of awesome. It's like that's been my favorite job of anything. It's just because every day is like a blank template. You know, it can be whatever I want it to be, and it's really fun to not be stuck to a genre or anything like that, and I just get to do a lot of different things within the world of music, and I still go out and do some sideman gigs. I'm playing with my friend Shelly Wright these days, who's really big in the LGBTQ world. We just went and did Pride in Los Angeles last weekend, which was really amazing.
Oh, sweet.
And yeah, that's sort of a bit of one side of things, and then also like a huge part of my life, other things that I've found. I developed a relationship with alcohol and with drugs, pretty early on, and that nearly killed me. And through a span of years where things got really, really bad, and in 2015, I sobered up, and then that's been a remarkable whole journey within itself, of like trying to find out who I am, and like dealing with anxiety and depression, but doing that without having to reach for something to alter my emotions, and I've 12-step therapy has been remarkable in that world. Running has been insane, like in the outdoors, my love for the outdoors. When I detoxed myself, and I was in a really, really bad way. I was drinking like, a fifth to a gallon of alcohol a day, and then as well as taking like Adderall to perform, and then taking benzos to sleep, and painkillers just sometimes just for the extra sensation of things. And like, so my detox was brutal. I should have gone to the hospital because I nearly died during that. And there's a big story with that too. But when I finally sobered up and like started reaching out and getting help, it changed my life. It kind of opened up. I had a big issue with Christianity and the God word and things like that from my childhood, and then like the idea of like reaching out and getting help from a group thing. It was really, really weird for me, and then I found, especially here in East Nashville, that that's a very liberal term, the God word, and I try to keep anonymity, but certain 12-step groups have been highly influential and like just kind of helping me get back into like a meditation practice, and like having people that keep me accountable and vice versa and things like that. But there's lots of gaps in there, so fire away.
Well, the one that immediately comes out to me is when you were talking about the 12-step program, when I had to hit my wall and get sober immediately because of my health issues, that was something that I went through too because of my Christianity as a kid. I was like, I had a big issue with the God thing. Like one time my parents were talking about one group and they were like, they put their hands on you and they pray. And I was just thinking, well, fuck, I will be drinking immediately if that starts happening. I'm not into that. And then like with the 12-step program, I know it works for people. I was very anti that. So I didn't even go that route because of that. That was what was keeping me from that. And I never say anything bad about it. I just didn't do it that way. I found a one-on-one counselor that was this wonderful hippie woman in Ashland, Ohio, which is my small hometown. And she was there for people like me, which was so rad. So yeah, I think we have such a similar story with that. So what was your moment when you finally realized like, well, shit, I have to stop this. Like, I have to get done with my drinking because I had pretty similar habits to you. I was at a handle and a half a day plus whatever I drank at a bar, but on my own I was a handle and a half, which is a shitload.
It's like that right now would kill us. Like,
yes,
but we eventually had this tolerance, and which is insane. Like, I mean, that is so much poison within one day. It blows my mind. I was like, how did I do that? You know. But I mean, the thing is, it worked. Like I really, really enjoyed drinking. Like the anxiety I had, you know, I added a little liquid courage, and I could talk to anyone. I was like, tried to be the life of the party, always hosting parties, like the good time in Jeremy. It was like, that's who I want to be, you know? And I credit it like for giving me some of the bravery to hop on national TV and do some of the things I did, and like that otherwise. I don't know. It's interesting now to think if I could go back and do that. And I think I could, but it just took me a few years of like learning how to be sober again, you know? But I mean, it worked and it was wonderful. Alcohol is great, especially if you're a normal drinker, you know, it's a really, really, really good thing. But when you find yourself drinking a handle plus of alcohol in a day, you've got a problem, you know? Gosh, I mean, all the just terrible decision making, you know, from bad relationship things, and you know, the girl I was talking about that I moved through, we ended up getting married, and then, you know, me making some blackout decisions with infidelity, which I would never I say that I would hopefully have never done, you know, otherwise, and you know, driving drunk. And I mean, I always prided myself on trying to be like the good guy and nice, and I'm all just have a good time. But like, I did some horrible things, like got into bar fights, which is so against like me, like because I wasn't myself. I was literally just that my conscious brain was off, and I was in that kind of just zombie mode, you know. But I cannot believe I didn't get into more. I didn't have more have more life consequences, but the physical consequences really started catching up with me. I started having some skin discolorations, and I think we talked a little about this too, but mine was more like just all these redness and like big rosacea, and then like I started gaining substantial weight, but I wasn't eating anymore. I was just, all my calories were coming from alcohol. And and I looked horrible, and people started noticing, and they're like, man, you probably should do something different, you know? And the last year and a half or so of my drinking, I was in the ER 5 times that I can remember, and people, you know, them were like calling social services and were like, you should talk to someone, like this is not good. And then I was on tour with the Sing Off, the show I was on. We had like this huge tour that we were on in 2015. It was like the 3-month thing, buses, the whole deal. And we were the headlining group, and I was the lead singer of the headlining group. And like before each show, you know, I was like in a fetal position if I didn't have the right mixture of cocktails and things in my body. Every morning I would get up, and I had the bottom bunk, and I would wait to hear like the last of the footsteps get off the bus, and because I was shaking so bad, And then I would try to, because I was so embarrassed about how I looked and how I felt, and so I would roll out of the bed and then like shakingly grab my bottle of vodka, and then pour hot tea and honey in that. I would try to get that down. I usually threw up the first attempt, and then I quickly would just like slam 2 just so I could get rid of the shakes or at least calm them down. And then and I was like, how did this happen? and I couldn't stop. You know, it was like on a tour, and like you can't detox yourself in that sort of environment. So
Right.
On that tour alone, either a doctor was called in or I went to the ER 3 times, and then the third doctor. Actually, it may have even been before that. I was in such a brownout that whole tour. But one of the doctors at some point looked at me, and he said, "You're gonna die." Like I showed him some recent liver tests and other things like that were happening, and he was like, "You've got about a year at this rate. Like at the amount you're drinking, it's gonna be an organ that shuts down. It's gonna be you're gonna aspirate in your sleep, and you're gonna vomit and not wake up from it." Or you're just gonna fall off something. I will be surprised if you make it 1 year. So, but this alcohol is gonna kill you. And he was the first doctor out of so many to be that blunt with me. And I'd wanted to quit drinking. I think at that point, because like more failed relationships. The group I was singing with was just hated me. Because like I was such a liability.
Right.
On stage. I was pulling like Elvis's where I would just kind of go on rants, and then people were like emailing and texting or messaging us on social media saying, "Hey, your singer needs help. Get him help." And every time someone would like try to do something to help me or have like an intervention, I would just rip them apart. And like I was so nasty. But I wanted to quit drinking. I was tired of it, but didn't know how, because I didn't want to lose the life I had, and I thought if I took away alcohol, I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be able to perform anymore. I wouldn't be able to be around people. I couldn't have relationships.
Yeah.
So it literally came down to the doctor saying, "You're going to die." And part of me was like, I know. And I kind of accepted this already. But I saw how gross it was. And I was like, I don't want to die like this. I was like, okay, I have 2 choices. I could be a hermit and never see the light of day again and be sober over here.
Right.
Or I can die.
Yeah.
And so it was like, all right, I'm gonna sober up. So I finished the tour. I told the tour manager, I was like, make sure I have a handle of vodka every day. And I can't leave the tour. So I did it like another 2 months, and I set my stop date. And I was like, as soon as I get home, we had a show like at the Ryman in Nashville, and I don't even remember that. And then I had another show with another band I was playing with as soon as I got home. And I was like, that's it. And then I'm gonna go detox myself, and I locked myself in a room, and it was horrible. Jesus. And I didn't know what I was gonna do, but I kept a couple little Klonopin by the bed, the nightstand, just like when I thought I was like, I'm gonna die, it would take something to do it. But yeah, if you're listening to this and you have a problem, go to the hospital to do that, because I really could have died. But I put on Ken Burns' The National Parks, which is a fantastic 5-part documentary. It's about 10 hours long, and I just watched it on repeat for like 3 days. And it was me dry heaving in a fetal position, and all kinds of other nasty things going on I won't go into, but like just this ball of goo, and like next to me on my computer was these serene images of Yosemite and the Grand Canyon and Saguaro and Yellowstone, and I was just like, if I can get through this, I'm gonna go see these things, I'm gonna do these things, because I've always loved the outdoors. I was like, I'm going to, like, that's what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to be outside more and like do things that I love. And that's a whole other story too. Yeah. This last year I was married in Yosemite, and I have now hit 27 national parks since then, and just slowly knocking them off. I've got a little map with the pins in it on our living room wall. And that's been pretty badass to like kind of go through and knock some of those out. And I've got a few more coming up this year. I've got a trip next month to New Mexico, and I think I'm going to try to drive to I'm not even sure which one yet. I think maybe Petrified Forest, but yeah,
Cool.
we'll see. But I'm just usually try to get 2 or 3 a year, sometimes a little more. Last year we got 11, which was awesome. But yeah, and then going back to the whole like the 12-step thing, like the first 2 months, there was no in hell I was going to do that. And then after detoxing, feeling a little better, I would go out once a week and close down a bar just to show myself I could do it.
Yeah.
Also, stupid idea if you're newly sober, but I would go get a soda water and like hang out with my buds and then watch them just get tanked and just be like, I could do this. And then come home and have so much anxiety. I would hop on an exercise bike and I chain smoked. And so I would just like chain smoke and watch Netflix on the exercise bike, which is just insane. But it was really funny. But and then eventually a friend of mine who was my old manager, she invited me. She'd been asking me, she's like, come to a meeting with me, come do this thing. And I was like, I can't do the God thing. You know, that's my hang up. And she was a part of the LGBTQ meetings. And she's like, come, it's super, it can be whatever you want. The book was written in the 30s, but you can interpret it in all these ways. Yeah. But just come to this meeting. And then I went there and that's what I found. I found there were some atheists in the group, and then there were a lot of agnostics. Probably like 80% of the people were like, I don't know what's going on, but we're just trying to show up and do the thing, you know. And I was like, all right. Like, and I kept waiting for like, when are you going to tell me I got to buy into this or something like that? And it just never came. And it was like, you just do things the way you want to do it. And it's been pretty remarkable. Like the community of people and the friends I've made from it all has been amazing. And then I think it's interesting. Like my brother also got sober a few years ago. He doesn't really do 12-step either. He has a pretty serious issue with the God thing as well. And it works. But I've found like people that have had pretty low, scary life or death bottoms. Most of the time it's like it can kind of scare you and be like, okay, I know what's going to happen if I pick that up again, you know? So it's either like a case of the fuck it's, let's just go out in a blaze of glory, or I know for me, there's not much, if I try to rationalize going to have a drink or two, like I know what that means. Like I can't fool myself anymore because I tried that hundreds of times before, like to try to drink normally, and it just always ended the same way. Yeah. So and in 12-step, like the first step is sort of that. Like if people have a strong idea of like I'm powerless over alcohol, then they may or may not drink again. But I know for me it was kind of more of like just how do I have like a network of people and I felt like I didn't want to kind of become that loner that I was worried about becoming, and I've just loved it. Like I totally understand like why people don't, but it's been highly helpful for me. But it's also like it's not. There's no monopoly in that. There's lots of ways to do it. You're an example of that, and my brother is an example of that. You know, so just a personal.
Yeah, it is. It's a very, very personal journey, and I anyone who can get over and above it and through it, no matter where or how you do it, it's fantastic. It's just like you said, you're powerless over it, and then you find your way through it. And dude, your story resonates so big with me because I was doing the same thing. I got the bottom bunk because I could hear everybody going in and out of the bus, and I was like putting shit up to cover my bottles because I would just have bottles. And I mean, as you're doing it, you think you're pretty sly, but everybody knows what's going on. I was the same. I was putting on tons of weight. I was looking horrible. I look at photos of myself and I'm like, of course people knew I wasn't well. I didn't look well. I was gaining tons of weight. I wasn't eating by the time that I got to my hard rock bottom. And yeah, like as people would come up to me and they would say the same thing, they were like, dude, you're headed for destruction. Like you can't, when you have that sort of a habit and people see it. And I think you're probably much the same as me, as I was a fun drunk. People had a lot of fun with me. I started the party. I kept the party going till everybody left. And then I kept partying by myself. And I at that time was wanting to stop drinking too, but my identity was wrapped up in drinking. Like, I am a very extroverted person, but over the years I've become very introverted because I've struggled with depression. I've struggled with anxiety. And when I started drinking, the first night I ever drank, I fucking loved it. That's my struggle, is I love it. I love being drunk. I love the feeling. The first time I felt my face get tingly, I can still feel it. I was in Houston at Dirt Bar, and I can still feel that. And that's where I know I'm the same with you, is like, I know what one drink does. One drink turns into as many as I can drink before my body falls over. And at this point, my body would just fall over and never function again. But like, headed towards that moment where I got to the hospital and I was fully jaundiced, like, that was the moment where I was like, fuck, dude. Okay, I've wanted to stop. I need to stop, but how do I do this? And it took exactly the same as you, hearing a doctor tell me that I might not have a night left. Like, I literally got told at 33 years old, you might not have a night left. You might not make it till tomorrow. And that was the point for me where it was like, holy shit, I have to do this. And so inwardly, I was like, I got this. Outwardly, I was like, I got this. You know, I was like telling everybody, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. But inwardly, I was like, dude, me touring, I was doing the VIP and the merch, and that was my way to come out and be the host and be the, you know, the fun guy that puts on these parties for bands. I didn't know how to do that sober. I hadn't done it for 7 years. Mm-hmm. And that's what's crazy about mine too, is I was 26 when I started and 33 when I ended. I just hit it real fucking hard, real quick. So I resonate with your story so bad, so big. And I feel like you and I would have had a lot of fun together, but a lot of trouble. We would have made a lot of trouble for ourselves
together. Yeah, it's really funny, especially knowing a lot of sober people now too. They're just like, man, we would have raised some serious hell together, but it would have been fun, you know. And it kind of makes sense too, like with your health issues with drinking too, is like, because like ramping up to, you know, a handle and a half in a really short amount of time, it's got to be a huge shock, you know. I was off to the races. Like, my first night really drinking was like, I'm getting drunk. And then I was like, this is the best thing in the world, you know, with two friends from school that I didn't know that well. And then like, oh, you're my best friends now, you know. And I was like, I want to do this as much as I can. But it was like in intervals until I got, you know, probably in my, I don't know, maybe 20s, early 20s. Like, I mean, I had many blackouts in my teenage years. But then like, especially 21 and up, it was just, you know, got to have at least 3 or 4 drinks before going to sleep. And, you know, and then eventually, and after going through a divorce, it was like just a whole new level. It was just like, well, no one's giving me shit about this anymore. I'm going to drink the way I want to drink. And,
right.
Yeah. And then that's when it started getting into the, you know, the handle land, which is crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, I was too, like, where nowadays, if I roll over and I'm thirsty, I'd grab a water like most people do in the world. But when I was drinking, it was, I would roll over and I'd have a bottle of Fireball and I would take a swig and I'd fall back asleep. I mean, it was nuts. Also, I resonate with you, and I think we're very similar in the way of like, we take life to extremes. Like you said, you would just go to bars and close them out with friends of yours. The first tour I ever did back out sober, I went out 3 months sober, still actively trying not to die. I didn't know how healthy I was. I still looked like shit. I was still like, my hair, like you could even see it in my hair. Like, my body was deteriorating very quickly. But I was like, if I'm going to still do touring, if I'm going to do life the way I want to do it, I have to figure this out. I have to just go for it. So 3 months sober, I went out with a very heavy partying band, and it would have been the greatest tour for me ever. I would have had the best time 4 months prior to when I did that. It would have been the greatest because everybody was fucked up all the time. They were falling over themselves, passing out at bars, doing all the shit that I used to do. So when I saw that, I wasn't judging,
Sure.
but I was seeing it as a sober person for the first time. And it was the best method to get me to see what I was doing and then realize like how good I was actually feeling at 3 months sober and working towards just feeling better and getting healthier. And then just watching these dudes, and like I took it as a karmic duty. I would go to the bar every single night with them, also to challenge myself to be like, Nick, don't fucking do this, and have power over it, but also carry these dudes home. Because I've been around the world where people had to carry me home at night, and I was blacked out in cities where I'm like, how the fuck did I survive? Like in countries I didn't know the language, like falling asleep at bars, like just ridiculous shit. So I was like, well, now it's my karmic duty to help these dudes who are having a good time, and be there for them to talk about it if they needed to, or just get them home safe and then they wake up in their bunk, So I'm with you. I went for that extreme of like, I'm just going to dive in because that's all I know in life. I know how to do the extremes, and that's that.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. It was sort of the same for me. I knew how to go back out with my group, who at the time that period of our lives, and some of the people that were in the group, they love to party. And so I was like, I'm going to have to, like, going out and closing down the bars was sort of like my boot camp, is what I called it. It's like, I'm getting myself ready to go back on the road and live, because like I'm not going to be able to avoid it, so I'm going to have to get used to it. And I'm glad I did that. Like once again, I wouldn't suggest anyone who's new to start doing that, because it's like, I mean, you're in the den of everything you like, and especially people who are quite prone to having a lot of anxiety. And that was kind of I was like, I'm not going to drink, but like I don't want to have a panic attack right now, But I'm glad I did in retrospect, because like now, I mean, I'm super comfortable around people drinking. Like it doesn't bother me really at all. Like, when people get really drunk and like are falling down, I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. It's just like there's a disconnect. But but it's also incredibly noble that you're like, I'm gonna pay back all the times people have done this for me, and go help people who kind of work through that as well.
Yeah. And I'm with you. There is a big disconnect when I see people get to a certain point, and I'm not judging, because I know why it happens. And what I think is, I've been thinking about it a lot, obviously, just recently, like with this pandemic, like I would have been fucked. I would have never made it through this, because I never would have stopped drinking. There would have been nothing to do, and I would have just drank myself away. But like, it's so easy for people to slip into it without even knowing, because even just the fun happy hour that everyone has, it's like happy hours to forget your day of work, and so instantly you're being told that it's okay to forget your day and use alcohol to do that. And I'm like, that's the easiest way to slip into alcoholism, even without even thinking about it, if you're just having fun. But that you're forgetting about your day on a happy hour. So I've just been thinking about it a lot, of like, it's just pumped to people as like, oh, it's okay to forget about, fill in your descriptor of what you want to forget about.
Yeah, I think that's also like, you find people gravitate towards certain jobs, like where our line of work, it's no big deal to get up in the morning and just go to day drink, Yeah. It's brunch today. It's Tuesday at 10.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Let's open up a beer, Yeah, I mean, we live, I think just America in general, and especially certain states, or in Nashville, it's just drinking town, and it's fun. But you find people will gravitate to work in places where it's acceptable, and then, I mean, for me and for you, it seems like at some point, like it was like people even within that industry, when you're out working with people that drink a whole lot, they're like, whoa, you've got a problem. Yeah. Like I knew I was in trouble when like my older brother, who was now sober, and two of my bandmates who drank a lot, and one of like my biggest drinking buddy, who I thought was like the only person that drank more than me, all like had like, we're going to have an intervention with me. And I was like, oh God, this is a problem. But yeah, man, the giving back thing, like, that's been a big thing for me too. One, I've just lucked out so much, and I had so many people that took care of me. And so, yeah, that's another reason I think I like the 12-step community too, is like now having the chance to like, people ask me all the time, it's like, do you still need to go there? And it's like, it's not necessarily that I need to. I get a lot out of it, but like I love the fact that like I have sponsees and people that I can help get through. Like my newest got sober during COVID, and
wow.
And like watching people do that, I was like, I probably would have been dead, you know?
Yeah.
So it's highly encouraging and helps me stay grateful, I think, by doing that sort of stuff. And yeah, like I feel like, okay, like thanks universe for giving me another shot at this. What can I do to help out, you know, the next person, which has been great.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think I don't regret any of my journey, but I do think I'm trying to pick up little community members. So I think that was one thing that I did miss out on from not doing 12 steps. But like everybody's journey is different, and I wouldn't change my journey, obviously. But it is really beautiful, even in the industry that we both have been so closely tied to, that there is such a big community, because everybody that's in that industry knows somebody who's struggling or been through it or passed, and the worst has happened. So I found a really beautiful community when I got back out on tour, and I was actually told, hey, it's cool that you're sober. And I found that in the music industry, where most people think, oh, everyone's just fucked up all the time. Yeah. It's an industry that nobody will tell you no. If you get your shit done, do what you do. But I found such a good core group of people that were just getting sober or been sober for a very long time, or had a friend or a brother, or there's so many people that have been through it to help in that industry, which I thought was really rad, even at a very hard time, 3 months on to where we are now. I found a very cool group of people that gave a shit. And
like, you're just such a great example for people that think like, how the hell am I gonna ever do that? And then you're like, hey, look at me X years ago, and like, I did it, you know. And like, I never thought I'd be able to do that, you know. So do you ever have people hit you up on like social media or email you or text you and be like, how did you do that, you know?
Totally. And I mean, the biggest story, and it actually led to where we're having this conversation that I started, the blog that I did to this podcast, was the first time I actually wrote about my sobriety. I had a friend who I partied my ass off with on a couple tours. We hadn't seen each other in a few years. He was a drum tech for the opening, or the headlining band on the tour that I was on, opening on my first tour back out. I wrote a big long piece, and he messaged me, and he just said, hey man, I got to tell you that because I saw you sober and doing your thing and keeping sober on that tour, I'd been wanting to get sober for a long time, and the next tour I went out on, I got sober, or I did it sober because I saw you doing it. And I love that he set this bar, and I'm okay if ever anyone's out there going, well, fuck, if Nick can get sober, then I can get sober, because that's what it was for him. He saw me, and he knew my habits, and he said, dude, if Nick can do it, I got this. And then he wrote that to me, and now he's 2 years plus. He's a few months behind me in his sobriety journey. I talk to him every once in a while, and I'm like, how you doing, man? And he's just like, I'm loving it, man. And so it was just this amazing bar that I set, that I was like, I'm totally cool with that. If I'm like the most fucked up person, you know, and then I got sober, and then it's like, oh, if he can do it, I can do it. That's totally cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that so much. And then like, and there's so much truth in that too. Like, when I first got sober, and I would talk to people that had been sober for a while, and they were like, man, life's really good. I'm like, they're just saying that. They're full of shit.
Right.
Life has got to be boring as hell.
Yeah.
And like 6 years in now for me, I'm like, life is great.
Yeah.
Like, it's so much bigger. It was like, I'm not just constantly like trying to think about how I'm going to work my day around alcohol anymore. Right. It's like, I have healthy relationships again. I have like meaningful conversations that I can actually retain some of the information.
Yeah.
I have discovered that, you know, I do have depression and anxiety that I'm not just drinking away, and like I have to work on that in some areas of my life. I have all these new crazy hobbies. Like I have a hot sauce company with my brother. I'm into ultra running, ultra marathons, and this year, depending on my health, I'm gonna try for my first 100-mile race, which will be crazy. Like I mean, I would have laughed you out of the room if like 7 years ago, like you were like, hey, you're gonna be going out and doing these ridiculous races with your life, in a few years. And I'm like, what? And like, as I, take a pull from a cigarette and,
right.
and pull from the jug, like you are absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's like, and it's also just the amount of gratitude I have just from knowing how close I was to dying and like being like, okay, I'm alive. And like, I need to keep my emotions and my mind sort of and moving in the right direction, so I don't get anywhere close to like the fuck it land. Like there's like the practice of gratitude's like been a big thing for me, and people do it in a lot of ways. Some people just journal it. I have like a little email chain with some dudes that I'm with, and like every night before I go to sleep, it's like write down 5 things I'm grateful for. And if I've had a shitty day, it's just like, all right, I've got this, or you can kind of helps me with my outlook and things like that. But that and I mean, just developing. I had a lot of anger and stuff towards the religion and God things, and even some resentment towards my folks too. But now, like, I kind of have my own little path, and I'm more Eastern philosophy, and I love meditation and different things like that. But it's great just not to have so much, like, I can disagree strongly with a lot of things still, but like not just have like a loathing for it anymore. And just like everyone's on their own journey, just trying to do the best they can. And I don't know. Sobriety is, I mean, it's freeing, but it's also fun. Like I can't wait to go to the mountains next weekend for my birthday. I've got some friends of mine. They're all, still normal drinkers, and they're gonna go out, and for my birthday we're gonna go run or hike in the day, and then we're gonna party at night and sit in the hot tub and play Magic the Gathering.
Nice.
And just be nerds. It's like, this is going to be, I'm so excited about it. And, one, I wouldn't be alive to do that otherwise, but 2, like, I'm so much more comfortable in my skin than just like that zombie, comfortable.
Yeah, dude. I mean, when you said just being controlled by it, like my habit was like, I knew exactly what city I was going to be in and what state that was, so that I knew the liquor laws. So if I was going to be there on a Sunday, I would buy booze. I'd buy extra bottles on a Saturday because it was nuts that it was just like everything. And then I was like, okay, where's the nearest bar that I can slip out to for 2 drinks and say I'm getting lunch? Mm-hmm. And it's so nice to be on this other side. And I love that you said that. Like, I was the same, dude. I thought sobriety, fuck that. That sounds boring as shit. I actually watched a stand-up special on from Steve-O, and he's, I mean, if you ever want to look at like where you can go to and where you can get back to, like, the dude's a hell of a story to look at. But he was like, he made the joke of like, if you don't have to get sober, don't. It sucks. And I was laughing, but now I'm like, it doesn't, dude. It's like, I couldn't imagine being back in the world that I was. Like, my relationships were horrible. I was so angry at a lot of stuff, and I have all the realizations that you're having, but like, it is such a freeing feeling to be like, have these conversations and know that this has power, and that even if nobody reaches out to us, that somebody listening to this is going to be like, well, fuck, man, I know my brother or my dad or a friend of mine, or even myself. Maybe I should look at my habits, and maybe I'm not to the point where these two have gotten to, but like, maybe I should just like pump the brakes on it. And do you find that, like, with your running and everything, was that just another form of like putting an extreme back into your life to keep yourself from it, to like make it through? Was that something that you just need in your life? Because I feel like I need those extremes in my life where I take my life to extremes. So I feel like I always do something that is kind of chaotic in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that's my personality too. But early in sobriety, I found that just going on walks like helped me so much with anxiety, with depression or anything like that. And I kind of had my thing. I would get up in the morning and I would smoke. I mean, I would read and then I would go on a walk, and like I had my little routines. That was another thing, is like, other than the drinking routines, I had like I transferred those over to like little healthier habits. But I loved going on walks, and I got into hiking, and then I messed my teeth up pretty significantly, passing out, not brushing my teeth, and before I go to sleep, and I had some pretty serious cavities, and I had to have some teeth pulled and get a bridge put in. And then when about 5 or 6 months into not drinking, I had the surgery. The first part, it was like they pulled the teeth, and then they have to let something heal, and then they put the bridge in 2 weeks later. But after they pulled my teeth out, they're like, you can't smoke. Like, don't do it. Like, you will get seriously infected. And so I was like, fuck it, I'm quitting smoking, and I'd smoked since I was a kid. And that was hard in its own right too. It was a different type of difficult, but I had so much anxiety with that. Like, I would whenever I craved a cigarette or was like just feeling overwhelmed, I would go out my front door and like just run down the street, like sprint, and then come back and be like, hack up along, and then be like, but I would feel better for a moment. I was like, okay. And then, and that turned into like the block and then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to try to run a mile today. And then I went and ran a mile, and I was like, this feels good. And, I'd already started, I'd lost a lot of weight, and I'd started getting in good shape, and I was doing, my sit-ups and push-ups and things like that. But like, this was a whole new thing. And I was like, oh, cardio, this like makes your brain feel real good.
Yeah.
And then, a mile turned into a couple miles. And then I remember that I had some running buddies. I was like, hey, can I come running with y'all sometime? And it was my friend Perrin Lamb, who I grew up with in Mississippi, and he'd moved to Nashville. And I went running with him. And I was just like, I guess I was so used to like just flying out the gates with anxiety. Like, we went running, and he was like, dude, slow down. Yeah. And I was like, you speed up, Yeah. And he was like, after a couple of miles, I think he was expecting me to sort of die down or whatever. And he was like, man, like, I think you're a gifted runner. You should look into signing up for a race and see what you can do. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself like a 4-month training period and sign up for a half marathon. And there's a race that they've had every year. They didn't have it last year. It was a half marathon here in Nashville called the Tom King Half Marathon. And I signed up for it. And like nerded out on everything running, like, the diet, the intake, the training. He was sort of my coach because his dad was, I think, a running coach at Auburn, but he knew a lot about running, and he really helped me out, kind of get into that. And I had a goal time. I was like, I'm going to work on my speed, and did the whole, whatever miles a week for that. And I did it. Like, I went out and just crushed my goal time, and I was like, that was so cool. I can't believe this body that was just so beat up a year ago. Yeah. Or it's like doing these things. Like, this is incredible. So I was hooked. And I was like, okay, now what's next? And then of course I was like, I think a half marathon is that's as far as I can go, And then after a couple of years, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try a marathon. And then the marathon, and then I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to try a 40 miler. and then the numbers just kind of keep going up.
Yeah. That's so cool. And I love that during the pandemic, you were doing your friend's run.
Yes.
That was so cool.
That was the best. Obviously, I felt bad for everyone not being able to do a lot of things that they wanted to do. But in the running community, people work so hard to train for these races. And in April every year is the one of Nashville's biggest marathons is the Rock and Roll Marathon. I ran it. That was actually my first marathon. And I'd had a lot of friends that had been training to do it, and then they canceled the race. And that's actually right around the same time as my sobriety date, which is April 26th. And I think the race was maybe on the 27th or 28th. Anyhow, friends of mine that I knew had been training either for that half or the full, I was like, how about we start? I'd already kind of been going out and doing like the friendship run by myself. I would run to friends' houses and just like I would text them as I was running and be like, hey, I'll come out to your front porch. I can't hug you, but I just want to wave to you and say hi. And so I started doing these crazy runs every Thursday where I would go just run all over town and do like 30 miles or something like that. And then the day that the Rock and Roll Marathon was going to happen. I had a lot of friends join me, and everyone sort of made their own route and ran to friends' houses and documented it on social media. But it was fun. Yeah.
So good, dude. I love that. I'll have to write down your sobriety date too, so I can keep up with you.
What's yours?
August 23rd.
Okay.
So this year will be 3. So I'm coming up on 3
Close
years
to my
this year.
brothers, actually. Cool.
Nice. Yeah, dude, that's so cool. I love that you have taken it to just from such a unhealthy to a very incredibly healthy. I think it's stories like these, like you and I getting to have this conversation. It's so important to show that even if your whole life is wrapped up into it, you can switch gears and find your journey, no matter what it is. If it's 12 steps, if it's with a one-on-one counselor, if it's on your own, whatever you have to do, it's really beautiful that you can come out on the other side and really find a love of life. And you will really love and appreciate life. I know I do. Once I heard that I might not have another night left to get that damning news, I found out that I gave a fuck to live. And that was a really beautiful thing. And so every single day is a really beautiful day in life because I woke up and I'm feeling good because I'm another day away from drinking.
Yeah.
And it's really beautiful. So dude, I'm so thankful for you being here, that we've become friends, that we met, and I'm kind of thankful that we didn't know each other beforehand because we probably would have fucked each other up pretty well.
No telling how that would have gone. Yeah, man, that's beautiful. I love that so much. Like, and now I'm grateful for all the shit I went through, and like,
totally.
I'm grateful that I would nearly died because I wouldn't be this happy. Like, I would be coasting and be like, all right,
yeah,
I'm just doing what I'm doing. But like, I truly am. Like, I get up every morning and I look out the window and I'm like, all right, thanks for another day. You know? And then just going about my day. And I wouldn't, that was well beyond me before this.
Yeah, I love that, dude. All right, I'm gonna switch gears. COVID restrictions aside, if I came to you and I said, Jeremy, I have a plane ticket to anywhere in the world, where would you go to?
I think it's a tie. I've been totally fascinated with Tokyo lately, and I've never been to Asia. And I've always known I really want to go to New Zealand. So I would probably be one of the two. I'd probably go with Tokyo right now, just because I'm feeling kind of weird, and like the Tokyo is just fascinating. The architecture and the food, and like some of the, like, just the culture is pretty amazing. And Japanese culture is just beautiful in general. But Tokyo is just got kind of, it's like the New York, of that part of the world, and so just kind of everything,
Yeah. I mean, in my perfect world, I'd say you're going to both. If this was a real scenario, I would just be like, well, fuck it, you're going to both. But yeah, I think Japan, I'm very fascinated by the culture. I want to go there so badly. And I mean, New Zealand, I think I would just get over there and love it. Like, it's funny too, because I'm not like beach and warm weather type person, but I know there's mountains and everything over there, and
that's
just
what I want to see.
The people that I know from there are just so wonderful and so chill. I think I would just get there and I'd just like get into this groove and be like, yeah, I'm good. I'm all good.
Yeah, I think New Zealand would feed my outdoor inner whatever. I think Tokyo would feed, like, just I think it would. I've been so curious about it.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go check that out. Maybe we should go.
We should go. I think it would just get there and all senses would be heightened.
Yeah.
Of like, holy shit, there's so many people, there's so many buildings. It's just the culture. I've heard it's just spotless too, even with all those people, which seeing New York as much as I have, it would be amazing to see a massive city with no trash. It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Even to see that. Yeah. Yeah. Let's go to Tokyo someday. That'd be super rad.
Let's do it. Like,
as soon as
that's
we can
another
get
cool
in.
thing about things. You save more money not
Dude.
drinking, and like you could do these wacko trips. You're like, hey, I'm going to. It may be 2 years from now, but I'm going to start putting X amount of money aside, and so I can go to Tokyo.
Yeah, and I mean, I have an app that just tells me the days and gives me like a daily affirmation of my sobriety, and it also had you put in like how much money you would spend a day, and so I put in $100, and that was I was spending at least that. So I was like, maybe it was more, maybe it was less, but I went with $100. And so in my time, I've saved close to $100,000.
What? That is crazy. I would have to. I mean, it's probably the same for me. What a cool app.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah. But yeah, you put in your sober date, and then you put in your habit of how many hours a day, and then also how much money you spent, and it'll tell you like hours of life you've saved not drinking, also money, and yeah, mine's slowly approaching $100,000, which I was like, holy shit,
is incredible. And so you've been saving that?
Yeah.
That's
I wish I had that chunk in my account because I spend it on other stuff. Now I go travel.
That's fantastic.
But now I'm not spending that actively every day.
It's wild. Like I did 1 year. I was terrified of doing my taxes, so I just didn't do them for several years, which also caught up with me. That's a whole other story. Yeah. But I would have accountants and like business managers and stuff like that, and I would just be petrified for them to see my receipts and like what I was spending my money on.
Yeah.
And like 1 year I did my taxes, and I think it was $10,000 at 3 Crow Bar alone in one bar.
Yeah.
In a 1 year.
I was probably pretty close.
I was just like, and then I remember like that was probably like a signing bonus year, because like I would go there and just be like, drinks on me, just do stupid shit, which made me a really fun drunk.
Of course.
It was I was very loving and giving, but
yeah.
But and also a great tipper, but like it would, I would spend obscene amounts of money drinking.
Yeah.
And then I would get totally broke.
Right.
I'd be like, why? Gosh, what's my deal? Like, I can't catch my break. And like, instead of saving that money that I'd made.
Yeah.
Because the musician life is kind of a roller coaster with income, but but now it's just like, oh yeah, that's where that money went.
Right.
Now I get to put that in other things, like investing and stuff like that.
Yeah. All right, dude. I have 2 more questions for you. The first one is, what would you want the world to know about you, Jeremy?
I think we've talked about a lot of it. How there's so much more, and there's more depth to all of us if we can find ways to, and for me to continue to find ways to sort of pull back the layers and do the hard work that that brings you to your true self, and that we're not all just one thing. I've been really big on this kick of non-duality, and like, it's really easy, especially with politics and everything that's going on in the world, is to look at someone and be like, because they voted for something, or they believe in this thing, or they like. I mean, I catch myself doing that, like just quickly latching onto that, and that's who they are, but then not seeing all the beautiful and good things, and that can go for people that have done horrible things, relatively speaking. I think there's good in all of us, and there's bad in all of us, and like I am trying to work on my outlook to be inclusive of everyone, even people that have a hard time understanding the choices they make. And I hope people can also look at me and sort of see the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, I've truly appreciated your friendship since I met you, and I mean, you inspire me, because when I found out and I saw that you were doing, and then it was like, oh shit, he's a couple years farther in his sobriety journey than me, and now hearing your story, and I mean, it is very eerily similar from the religious aspect to the drinking to every single aspect of it is very similar. So I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you coming on and doing all this. And you are such a powerful person. I hope you know that you inspire me. You inspire a lot of people with everything you do. So likewise, I truly appreciate that, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. And last question, if you had the ear of everybody in the world, what would you say to them?
Work on finding a way to love with no price tag. Like, I think that's also kind of going back to a little bit of what I was saying before too, but like, try to see what you can give and see what sort of empathy you can have and what you can give back to the world without what you can get in return. And that's something I am working on.
Yeah.
I fall short quite a bit because it's funny. Like I've been trying to like look deeply into my motives sometimes, even with my wife and with every situation in relationships. I'm like, why am I doing this? And like trying to work on to be at a place where I'm just doing it simply because I want their well-being, or like I want to be empathetic and compassionate and try to give back. And also going back to what we were talking about before too, is just I've got a lot to give back.
Yeah.
I probably went into some serious deficit with my karma, with choices and selfishness and things that I did for years. And so, if people, and I still fall short constantly. There's things to work on my side, but just if you can look at your motives, look at where you're at with your life and your relationships, and try to see like, am I doing this for me and to build myself up? And and there's a whole other conversation about, obviously it's important to feel good and to have goals and do things for yourself and pampering, but like also are you capable of loving people just simply to love them without anything in return?
Yeah, that's beautiful, dude. Where can people find you if they want to follow along on your journey or reach out and tap into some of your wisdom and the power?
Well, it's funny. Yeah, we talked very little about music, but
right.
Music's lots of fun things. I put out 3 albums last year, a side project called Cool. I've got the Street Corner Symphony is the a cappella group. We have a children's album coming out, hopefully later this year. And Jeremy Lister on social media. I think it's Jeremy Blister. And then Blister Hot Sauce.
Yeah. Which is fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm in Spotify, iTunes, anywhere for all of those things. Jeremy Lister, Cool, Street Corner Symphony. Yeah.
Yeah. Check it out. Connect. If you have any questions, comments, if you wanna just reach out and get to know Jeremy, he's an amazing person. So I truly thank you for coming over here and hanging with me, man.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Beautifully Human podcast. To hear more beautiful stories from beautiful humans, follow us on Spotify and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at the Beautifully Human Podcast. Peace signs up.